One. Good evening. My name is Richard Wells, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 8th, am I right day, 2025 regular meeting of the Milton Select Board. Tonight, we are on the road. We are inside the walls of the Milton Arts Center, located on Edgehill Road. I'd like to begin by calling the meeting to order and go to item number 2. And ask everyone in the room to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to begin by, I want to give a special shout out to our hosts, the directors of the Milton Arts Center, as well as some of the board of directors here as well, by thanking Kevin Dambruch and Joan Clifford for arranging for us to have this to happen tonight. It's a very fitting backdrop of money for this time of year in Milton. This is part of a local art show that is being displayed here by our residents and their family, and I didn't know that was going to be here, but truly made it a fitting backdrop for tonight. So I wanted to make a public thank you to them for this. So item number 3 is public comment. We are going to do 2 public hearings. I don't see anyone signed up for public comments, so I'm going to. I do. All right, sorry. Then please come forward and state your name. Even though I know who you are, but please state your name first. Sure. And thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Public comment is limited to 21 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to please try and limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm Daryl Warner. I'm here to speak in favor of Article 37, Protection Against Light Trespass. I moved my family to 66 Martin Road in Milton in 1998. A Milton resident purchased a house next door to ours in 2005. She never moved in. We heard from neighbors that she owned a house on Dyer Ave. We never met her. The lawn service cut the grass in the summer with blowers blowing grass and dust all around. In the spring and fall, they even had up to 3 backpack blowers going. I used my snow blower to remove snow from her front sidewalk and sometimes her entire driveway to make it look like someone lived there. I did that until 2014, 9 years after she purchased the property, when a nephew with his wife and 2 children moved in. They were great neighbors. They moved out in 2019. The owner moved in when the nephew moved out in 2019. Immediately turned on 2 floodlights in the backyard and 1 backyard porch light. Those 3 lights stayed on 24/7, flooding our deck and our backyard. We have a very nice deck and a large backyard. We always spend as much time as possible on our deck and in the yard. We eat every meal out there whenever possible, no matter what the weather basically. And as we all know, COVID happened in 2020. Our deck and backyard became even more of a refuge, not only for us, but for our 2 children, our grandchildren, and friends. During COVID, my wife asked if the lights could be turned out. The owner replied, "No, I like them the way they are." And she walked away. The owner has since refused to speak with us and avoids us at all costs. The owner moved out in December of 2020. The lights still flooded our yard. We had the police and town employees out to observe the situation. All said there was nothing we or they could do about the lights. June of 21, the lights had been shining 24/7 for 2 years. I sent a registered return receipt letter to the owner asking for the lights to be redirected so they would not shine directly into our yard. And I asked her to contact us. I copied the town administrator, the select board, building inspector, planning board, planning director, and an attorney. The lights were redirected slightly in response to that letter. However, they still light up our deck and our backyard. They are a constant point of stress, 24/7, 365. They are a troubling nuisance and take away our enjoyment of our property. The lights are on right now, almost 6 years later. The situation is crazy, it's ridiculous. This is hostile behavior. Please, 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 we need this bylaw to stop this kind of behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else for public speak? Did you sign up?
You might want to remind folks.
Hold on, so I'm gonna remind, are you here to speak? Can you just tell me what you're here to speak on? What issue?
We're here to actually speak on the same one.
Okay, why don't you just wait till the public hearing? That's probably the best thing to do.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to speak on anything other than the two articles we're gonna talk about in public hearing tonight? Raise your hand. Going once, going twice.
We have two folks online if you're gonna take Zoom comments.
Those are gone. Go ahead. I got it. I don't see it. Where is it?
Folks are raising their hand.
Go to all,
Go to participants.
Oh, I got it. Asking, is there anyone who wishes to speak? Do I have to unmute this to
I
try?
took care of it, so,
I'm here.
Is it, what are you here to speak on?
I'm here to speak on the anticipated budget deficit that the school committee cut $1 million out of their budget about.
There's a public comment. So, can you please state your name and your address?
Beverly Ross Denny, 107 Columbine Road.
I thought I recognized the voice. All right, thank you. You could begin.
Over the last 2 months, I've watched members of our school committee come to this select board humbly and respectfully because of a budget shortfall, which I truly believe was simply an oversight. Although someone has apologized and resigned over this, you asked the school committee to cut an additional $1 million to close the anticipated FY25 budget deficit. As town leaders, you chose to punish unsuspecting students whose only mistake was to need additional support. The consequences of your actions will impact these students and our community for years. I'm here to represent the hundreds of students who couldn't vote for you. These are the students that have relied on the small handful of math and reading interventionists. These interventionists help to keep them at grade level or from falling woefully behind their peers. Ironically, these may be the same students who will qualify for special education services with costs that rise higher than inflation after spending a school year without the guidance and support of this treasured faculty. When other departments have experienced budget challenges, the select board has willingly filled that gap. It makes me wonder, why won't you do the same for our children? For the first time in my memory, the Milton Public Schools was in the process of hiring someone whose sole responsibility was instruction, not human resources or other miscellaneous responsibilities. The district paused that hiring because of you. I recently received an email from my 5th grade daughter's teacher explaining that they have no paper for their assignments. It's clear to me that you value some Miltonians, and it's not the next generation who will be responsible for our care as we age. The real question is, when will you show mercy? I thought at some point you would have come to the realization that educating our children isn't a budget problem to be solved. Our town has a revenue problem caused by a structural deficit. I thought you would have had empathy to understand that the town still has the responsibility and obligation to educate our children. The ripple effects of your decisions will be felt for years. While this may not have been your intent, it will be your impact. As several district presentations have pointed out, Milton spends far less money than our peer districts per student for the outcomes that we have achieved. An extra $1 million of an override would cost the average property owner approximately $100, and you're willing to sacrifice these young people for $100. The irony is that in one breath, you grasp that there are families who own $1 million properties and cannot afford a tax increase, but you've struggled to identify alternative sources of revenue such as private grants, commercial development, or pilot funds. While I hope the next select board will rebuild what you've deconstructed,
Thank you,
I
Ms.
also recognize that it will take years. It is unfortunate that your legacy will be dismantling the first support structure that our already underfunded district has had in a generation. Your legacy will also be your failure to address the revenue crisis that existed when all of you were elected, but could not manage to solve.
Thank you, Ms. Denny.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else on Zoom for public comment?
Deborah Felton.
Ms. Felton?
Thank you. Bev Denny is a hard one to follow. Deborah Felton, 20 Willoughby Road, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. I was really concerned that we have lost yet another grant because of our non-compliance with the MBTA Community Act. Now seniors, the Council of Aging applied for a new van, and because we are non-compliant on the MBTA community law, we did not receive that money. Now, those vans take people to doctor's appointments all over Greater Boston, and the impact will be felt by seniors all throughout Milton. Now, I think that it's over $1 million now that we've either lost or spent on fighting the law that the Supreme Judicial Court said that we had to comply with. I do not understand why we are still talking about being considered an adjacent community. And I would like the select board to take some leadership on this and get a compliant plan passed so that we can get funding that we need in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's it.
That will conclude public comment for tonight. Okay, so I'm going to go to item number 4, public hearings. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 public hearings tonight. We don't have public hearings. I'm going to ask each speaker to limit their comments to 3 minutes. I'd like to get these 2 done within 7:20. I'd like to be done by 8. To be on that, I'd like to be done before 8, but at 8 o'clock we're going to end both of them. So I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing relative to general bylaw amendment, light trespass. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so who's here to speak on light trespass? Raise your hand. Okay, are you speaking together?
Yeah.
All right, why don't you come up and please identify yourself by name. If you can sign the sheet, are these sheet? I don't even know those.
There's a sheet that identifies.
There's a sheet that identifies which hearing is used with your name and your address, please.
We do have one person online.
Okay.
For next meeting. Okay.
I'm going to bring in the slip and written comments be brought into written, yeah, to the record. No, the written, there was some written support.
Yes.
Someone asked that that be put into the record. Okay. I'll do that after.
There's more, I believe Nick has received at least 2 more since he said the last one.
Ready? Yeah. You can begin. Welcome.
So we're both members of the Milton Academy Sustainability Board, and tonight, as you guys discussed the bylaws, which would go against light trespass in Milton, we just wanted to urge you to consider how access light not only impacts Milton residents, but also how it disrupts the environment that we all depend on. Light pollution is more than just a nuisance, it's a growing ecological threat. Artificial light at night interferes with wildlife migration, feeding, and reproduction. Birds lose their way, insects die off in great numbers, and even plants are thrown out of sync with natural cycles.
And beyond environmental harm, light pollution erodes something deeply human, which is our connection to the night sky. When unnecessary lighting floods our neighborhoods, we lose the stars in the sky. We lose perspective of who we are. Generations are growing up never having seen the Milky Way from their own backyard. That's why towns across the US, from Acton in Massachusetts to Flagstaff in Arizona, has strict enforceable standards for lighting. Many includes lux limits, curfews, and full shielding requirements based on the dark sky guidelines. We encourage Milton to follow that example, not just to protect neighbors from intrusive lighting, but also to become leaders in preserving the night sky itself. And as members of the next generation, we're asking you guys to pass this bylaw and strengthen it if possible to ensure the skies and ecosystems we inherit are still intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a hard copy of that?
Yes.
So if you want to email that to us.
We're gonna be back in email to the.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So for the record, I just want to make note of Mr. Warner's comments for this hearing, even though we gave them before the hearing, and the written support that we received, I have received, through our office.
There's been about 8
Right.
emails that we've received in support of this, and then, did you say Mr. Hushman?
Yeah.
Also has, he had a few just clarifications that he wanted to see to make sure that this wasn't abused.
Right.
So Mr. Milano and I can take a look at that.
Okay, anyone else on the lighting?
I have one online, Tucker Smith.
Mr. Smith, go ahead. Oh, Smith? Oh, sorry, my bad.
It happens. I'm used to it.
I'm having one of those days.
Me too. Thank you for recognizing me. My name is
Thank you for your email too.
Yes. All right. Well, I would like to, be visible and not just invisible through a letter to your office. My name is Tucker Smith. I reside at 1632 Canton Avenue and have for 46 years. I fully support Article 37. For clarity, the Oxford English Dictionary defines trespass as committing an offense against a person or set of rules. And I agree with the students from Milton Academy who preceded me. I treasured the optic of night, fireflies, lightning bugs, and the calm of darkness from our home, which borders the wooded Blue Hills Reservation. Today, we abut a 54-unit luxury housing development, just called Wolcott Woods, stretches directly behind us. Some owners, not all, but they leave a pair of garage lights, porch lights, 1 or 2, and a pole-mounted light on overnight. Dusk to dawn continuity, the extreme brightness, and the sharp white color absolutely constitute a light trespass. I'm not a lighting engineer, but there are street lights on the street. We have an excellent Milton Police Department. It is not a high crime neighborhood that I know. Is it fear or just a habit? Whatever the reason, we have, it is critical that we humans reduce light pollution at night. What is a nuisance to me is a killer to nocturnal wildlife species, particularly insects. I'm quoting, "Research is showing that porch and security lights are major causes of insect decline." So writes entomologist educator Doug Ptolemy. He adds, if nothing else, replace the white bulb with yellow tinted bulbs. LED bulbs, yellow, are the best because yellow wavelengths are the least attractive to nocturnal insects. Small efforts by many people would help to restore and preserve Milton's biodiversity and quality of nightlife. Article 37 is a beginning. Increased public education would help. I thank you for your consideration and urge that this appear in the town meeting warrant and be voted favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Anyone else on Zoom? Anyone else here for this article? I'll accept the motion to close. I'll let you comment.
No, my comment is that this is, much needed thing. I think that, we've done our due diligence. It was in the Milton Times. Everybody saw that we are having this hearing today. So all the town meeting members know that they could have come and asked us questions. And so I hope that we will have a unanimous vote at town meeting, since nobody was here to tell us any problems with it. And so I
I
will.
love it.
Do you wanna, before I close it?
Sure.
Yeah, go. Well, because I was gonna make a motion, so go.
So once you make the motion second, I'll just do it for discussion and then vote. How's that? So you make a motion,
Okay,
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion. Any, Ms. Mustone, any other members that have comments?
okay. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the lighting bylaw.
I'll second it.
Okay. So I think it's a overall very good, very well thought out. I wanted to just address a couple of things that people have reached out to me about. Excessive glare, how would this apply to holiday lighting? Because a lot of people use holiday lighting and they'd like to know how that applies.
Absolutely. So this is not intended to do anything with holiday lighting. Holiday lighting, you know, it's tricky because it can be a religious thing. And so we didn't want to put in, when I talked to our town attorney, we didn't want to put in specifics around holiday lighting, but this is absolutely not to deter anybody from celebrating their holiday in the best way that they want. Be a good neighbor. Turn off your lights at 11:30, midnight, like that's, you don't need holiday lights all night. But no, this is not here to do anything with that.
Okay, and then the other questions that people asked me were, and I'm glad to hear that bit, the holiday lighting, because that was a big concern, because it's not clear in here. The other question was the outdoor lights on a limited motion sensor. So the concern from some people that reached out to me, and I can relate to this because I used to work off shift as a nurse. Your lights, if you're on a motion, they'll go on.
Yes, that's fine.
And that's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And just keeping the light trespass within your own property.
Correct. So if you actually look, it talks about the lumen levels that are actually using a light, that are on a motion sensor. So the security lights are
Okay.
fine because they're on a motion sensor.
Okay.
We don't want anybody's safety to be in jeopardy when they're leaving the hospital or anything like that.
Okay. And I think, I'm just trying to see if there was something else in the sheet here that people reached out.
If people reached out to you through email, I would love for you to forward it on.
Oh, I
Or at
would.
least let me know who reached out to, I mean, since it's a public hearing, I'd love to know who reached out to you. If you can get that to me.
And then, sure, and not everybody reached out. They ran into me at different places.
You know where they are.
Yeah. So, and then I think that was pretty much it. And then will there be any examples for people to see with pictures of what some
What
of
lumens
these?
are.
Because I don't think people know what lumens
So
are.
I bought a lumen
Mhm.
and I wish I could remember it right now, but I'm gonna bring it to town meeting. And I will do it there and you'll be able to see what lumens look like.
Like a
And
Luma
yes.
monitor or something?
Yeah, it's $25 on Amazon. In fact.
Have a power fan and you'd be all set.
The other thing is that if you look at your light bulbs these days, they actually say how many lumens they are expelling,
Producing.
producing.
Yeah.
So it's very common to know exactly what you're putting into your, porch lights, anything like that.
And the final question is in terms of who's going to oversee it.
Yes.
So there is some question as to whether it should be more like, building department
Yes.
versus a select board, to actually go out and look at these things. And a lot of of course, in the winter, it's easier because in the winter it's dark earlier, but what about in the summer and things like that? Are we paying somebody to go out and look at some of these places?
So, I would say yes, and it could be a police officer that goes by with a lumen thing and just clicks the button. It literally takes 3 seconds. It's like a thermometer. So if you notice, we added, in section under enforcement, section 5B, we added designated by the select board, so that allows us to designate whomever we want
Okay,
to handle this, whether that is the building inspector, whether that's, Chief King, whomever that might be, to
Okay.
best handle it for that moment. That's why we did that. So thank you, Nick, for putting that in, because we did hear that on the floor of town meeting.
right.
And so I thought that was a great idea and we threw it in there.
And the final question is if somebody has a problem with a lighting issue, is it per actual light bulb that they get a fine, or is it per house?
Per
So-
house,
Okay.
per house. Would you like us to clarify that in the?
Well, I think it should be, because I would think that, if somebody has a lot of lights, then, you know what I mean? Like, people might think, is it an individual, offense, or is
Okay.
it?
It's a per house. If
Okay.
you are found in, out of compliance,
Uh-huh.
it's a per house violation. But I will make sure that we have that right.
All right, thank
Nick,
you.
I'm writing it down.
Those are the types of questions.
Anything
Thank you.
else that you ran into people and they asked you?
That's it.
All righty.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
I'm good.
See?
So I just have one comment.
So what I'd like to ask you, Mr. Chair, is if I can have until Friday to make some of these changes.
So I'm gonna amend the motion. Is it my motion or your?
You haven't
motion?
said it yet.
You wanna amend it?
Motion to close the hearing.
You haven't said your motion yet, but I want to add the per.
I think I just made a motion to close, so we don't have to, we can leave this until the 22nd.
Mhm.
But we're gonna vote it. I mean, we're gonna.
We have to vote it to go.
So the warrant, all the warrant committee has and all that will be printed in the warrant at this point.
We'll vote it subject to final comment.
We have as.
We'll vote it subject to final comment. It's okay? You okay?
Yeah, that's right. I'm just gonna make the changes that Ms. Musto just said.
The only thing that you've made me think about was when you talked about enforcing it, like. That's a tough one for police to enforce. That's probably something you want to have a conversation with before you get to.
Well, I
Yeah,
know,
I
it could be the DPW worker, any town employee.
mean, I don't see this being like, this isn't gonna be like speeding on 28.
No,
But it's, yeah,
Extraordinary
it will be, right, so like, okay.
Like I heard about earlier.
Okay, so. Motion to close, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
Are we,
And Nick, do we need a motion? to-
So the warrant is essentially done and dusted and going to the printer
When?
end of day tomorrow.
I get
so-
some changes by before end of
Up
day
to the
tomorrow.
board if they want to so vote
Oh,
to
yes.
change the article subject to
The changes we discussed this evening.
and town council's
Yeah.
approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the article, subject to the changes discussed here and with town council's approval.
second? All those in favor? Aye, okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Good. Council? I don't even see him. I know he's out there
He's back
somewhere. Okay.
Don't worry, I'll get him tomorrow.
I'm not worried. I told you we'd get this. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so this hearing is closed. I'm gonna make a motion to open. Article 4A. I'm gonna move to open a public hearing relative to general bylaws, alcohol on town property.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This hearing is open. Somebody,
If I could just offer a quick comment. Joe,
Sure.
Just in procedurally, so, as the board knows, a bylaw went to, and a warrant article went to the special town meeting, that would have allowed this on both town property and town land. What was approved was just on town property. We don't have a draft of an article yet. I put up online for folks to view as a resource, essentially what was approved at town meeting, except now adding back in town land, just as there was something, some context for people to be able to see. But like I said, we haven't drafted anything, nothing's really been put together on this, so if, depending on the public hearing, if the board would like, we can start to work on something, but I just wanted to clarify in terms.
but
And am I right in that we also have to wait for the attorney general to approve the,
well, that's on all, yeah, that's written on
Yeah.
all articles, yeah. Before they're engrossed.
Further, I don't know procedurally if another warrant article couldn't go to further amend the bylaw.
Okay,
It's even that it's
prior to
approved, but
Okay.
we could work through that piece of it, but I did put up a draft online, so there's something, so people had context as to what this is about. And it replicated what was approved in February, just added back in town land. So anyway, I just wanted to explain that. Thank you, sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Okay. So who's here to speak on this article, raise your hand, please, if you know they're gonna speak. Okay, so. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I see like 9, so I'm gonna try to keep this 10, so I'm gonna try and keep this to, it's 7:40. We'll have to get this done by 8. Let's go to like 8:15 at the latest. If each person could just come up, sign their name, I'll try to limit the comments to 3 minutes, but, we're pretty good at coaching now. We're pretty good at letting everyone. So this hearing is open. Who's coming first? Who's coming up first to speak? Don't all jump at once. Go at once. Mr. Pavak, you. Good evening. Thank you for coming. Actually, you know what? Once you grab the other two, I can take the other two away so that eliminates them. We don't usually have these many sign-up sheets. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Joe Vecchio, and I'm here in support of resubmitting the general bylaws amendment, chapter 105, regarding alcohol on town property. I'm a town meeting member for precinct 9, a Milton business owner, and the president of the Milton Chamber of Commerce. The Milton Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization of over 110 local businesses. And we work hard to support the Milton community through sponsorships of school events, sports teams, and numerous other causes, fundraisers, and also by hosting events that bring the community together. Our most popular events are the Halloween stroll and the holiday stroll and tree lighting that bring peaceful gatherings of several hundreds of people of all ages to Manning Park. Businesses give out treats and we offer entertainment, music, and many other fun activities. One of the repeated pieces of feedback we received from participants was requesting to have something for adults. Not all about the kids for a time. And for the past 4 events over the last couple of years, we've offered food and alcoholic beverages. Adults can buy drinks from a limited beer and cocktail menu. We work with the town to abide by all the rules to offer alcohol. We coordinate with Milton Police and Fire for the events, including closing off the cut through from Adams to Brandon. And we purchase a 1-day event insurance policy and pay for a police detail of at least 4 officers to monitor any crossings on Bryant, Granite, and Adams Street on both sides of the park. We take great pride in creating a safe environment for everyone and bringing them together to enjoy the beautifully renovated park that we waited so long for. We have not had a single incident at any of our events, including the past 4 where we offered food and alcoholic beverages. So, I was extremely shocked and disappointed to hear that our events were being highlighted as reasons to amend chapter 105 to disallow alcohol. I would actually argue that we should be used as an example of how the original bylaw could be followed successfully and responsibly. Therefore, on behalf of Milton Chamber, I ask that the bylaw be considered for resubmission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who's next? Good evening.
Good evening.
I know you're ready if you just state your name.
Oh, okay.
For all those millions of people watching at home. And by the way, we are live. We want to thank Milton Cable. We thought this was going to be taped and then put onto the YouTube channel at 11 o'clock tonight, but thanks to, their skill and expertise, we're around the world tonight.
So good evening, okay, I'll skip the greeting. My name is Susan Kofaser and I live at 115 Warren Ave. I'm speaking tonight to express concern about the proposed bylaw amendment that would allow the sale of alcohol on town land, including parks and other public spaces. To date, I have not heard publicly articulated rationale, although I guess I did just hear one with the previous speaker. What are the benefits of this change? Nor is it clear who the constituents or organizations beyond the select board are who are driving this proposal. And I guess I heard that now too from the previous speaker. But this leaves me unsure how this change aligns with our town's values of health, family, and inclusivity. From my perspective, this change introduces public health risks and undermines longstanding community norms. Milton has traditionally been a town where families could attend public town-sponsored events in our parks without expecting to encounter alcohol sales and consumption. That norm contributes to safe, welcoming spaces for all, especially for youth and for members of our recovery community. We know from extensive research presented at the last town meeting that adult drinking in public spaces normalizes alcohol use for young people, and that community norms strongly influence youth behavior. Massachusetts has the 6th highest rate of underage alcohol use in the country, and Milton youth drink at higher rates than the state average. And Milton has a visible and active recovery community, offering town-sanctioned alcohol at public events, risks further marginalizing residents in recovery or affected by addiction. If the select board does proceed with an article to allow alcohol on public land, I would strongly urge the bylaw to include evidence-based safeguards. While Milton's current one-day license rules include some important protections, they do not go far enough to reflect public health best practices. I recommend the following areas be included directly in the bylaw: enforcing of alcohol-only areas within the events, use of wristbands and ID checks, use of distinguishable cups for the alcohol, limiting the number of drinks per transaction and the amount of alcohol per drink, advance notification to neighbors that alcohol is going to be available at the events, no alcohol advertising aside from at the point of sale to communicate price and product, and data collection by the town to track and publicly report on license use, complaints, and public health outcomes. Let's be clear, this is not about prohibiting all alcohol use. Private events and businesses have different expectations and different oversight, but public land belongs to all of us, and changes to how we regulate it should reflect the broadest community interests, including youth, families, and people in recovery. Thank you for your time in considering these recommendations. I hope we can continue this conversation with more transparency, data, and community engagement.
Thank you. Who's next?
My name is Joe Perry-Langer, and I live at 19 Oak Road.
Way to double task that. That was good.
What's that?
Way to double task. You're writing it and saying it.
You're saving time to get an extra point. You can have an extra 30 seconds.
Well,
Kidding. Good evening. Good evening.
so, thank you all for letting me speak for a couple minutes. And I am speaking against this particular bylaw. I live in Milton. I work as a physician, primary care physician, I've done so since 2009. And I also work in addictions. So I see quite a few people every week with alcohol use disorder, along with another number of other addiction. One of the things that's unique for people with alcohol use disorders that I see is the challenging thing is that they often don't think they've got a problem. And one of they'll often start drinking very young, as teens or young teens, and they're drinking then because they see their parents drink, they see their family friends drink, and in these social gatherings, and so it's normal, it's part of life. And so it gets really difficult as an adult to think past that, think that it's not a normal thing. That concerns me, just that modeling behavior, that we could be creating another instance where we are modeling that sort of behavior for our kids in the community. Especially when we know the effects that alcohol has on kids. The earlier kids start drinking, the more likely they are to end up with an alcohol use disorder. Also, it starts to affect their brains aren't developed until they're 25. So you're having more cognitive influences with the alcohol when they're young. Also increases anxiety, depression, kind of these different behavioral disorders. So just be very concerned about the effects that this might have on your kids. So modeling the behavior as well as the effects that it has on the kids within the community. And yeah, I guess that's primarily what I wanted to say. Is as a physician, community member, I get concerned about how this could influence our kids. So,
Thank you, Doctor.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I saw a hand up. Oh, okay. That's all right, no worries. We'll just roll you out of order. No. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm not sure. I can move business quite as well.
Look what you did, Doctor.
Sorry, my bar. Good evening. My name is Jill Clark. I live at 26 Harold Street. I'm a town meeting member in precinct 4. I have both process and substance questions that I would like to share with you. The first question I have is you've indicated that this is a public hearing, open this as a public hearing. I don't know if there are requirements around process for advertising a public hearing, but I was notified that this was happening via email of the town board that I had signed up with yesterday. And I work for a state agency, promulgate new regulations, we hold public hearings. That would not fly in my job. There's a lot going on in town right now, and it's difficult for folks to get here on short notice. So I'm glad that I could make it tonight. But I wonder about how many people might be interested in.
So we're required to post on our agenda when we have a public hearing. We actually
And
announced
we
it.
posted it
Yeah,
in
we
the Milton
posted
Times
in the Milton Times as well.
over a week ago.
Yeah, we announced 3 weeks ago, actually twice now, that we were going to do this, and actually it was going to be on the road. We were going to take. It was pretty public that we were coming in. This is the most people we've had, other than on the school issue. It's the most people we've had in a long time at a meeting. So
we did everything that we were supposed to do per our plans.
Great, good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that. I still found out about it yesterday. So, I think, thinking about where the stakeholders might be and where they might be interacting with the information and who is able to come on a Tuesday. The next question I have about process is that I think this public hearing is very different from the one that we just had on light trespass, because we made a decision at town meeting to send those things back for study, if I recall correctly, whereas this one was voted on at town meeting. So we had a discussion at town meeting. We had a number of amendments on the floor. We voted on it. We made a decision as town meeting, which is town meeting's obligation to pass town bylaws, and decided to pass it the way that it was. And so I'm not really clear if my understanding is that you can't go back to town meeting with something that's substantively similar. So it looks like I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
So I'll just be very brief. It was brought to us very quickly to bring it back. Wanted to take a sec, because as you know, it only lost by 3 votes. They wanted to re-vote it. Several approached us, and as well as other town meeting members who were there wanted to re-vote the next night. There was a process to bring something back for a second vote. And we decided, given the fact that it seemed that the coalition was asking for a public hearing, we decided, okay, we will not bring it. We'll bring it forward in May, and we would have a public hearing to allow. So that's the process that we took.
Appreciate it.
Another process question that I have, and I appreciate these responses, is the first speaker brought up events where alcohol was being served on public land. And my understanding was is that the purpose of this is to create a situation where alcohol can be being served on public land.
So it was believed, it was a technicality that was found. No one realized that this prohibition existed on the deck, and that's how this came to light that created the initial article. We knew about it in certain buildings, because this building it's written into their lease. You're in a town building now.
Yeah.
That's how it happened. That's how the article came to be.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm lost, and I'm probably not the only one. So I think that it seems like something that was happening was not supposed to be happening, and now people are upset that this is confusing, and I think making sure that
There are a multitude of laws and bylaws in this town, the Commonwealth, if you work for the Commonwealth, understand a little bit. So it was not known that there was a prohibition that existed, and it was only after the first few events that we realized that it did exist. And that's why we brought the article to town meeting for. The article actually became bigger than what we actually intended it to be. It was actually for outside, and then it was asked to make it buildings and outside. So that's how it got to where it was at town meeting.
yeah, I understand. As a private citizen, not knowing the law doesn't protect me if I break it, right? And so which is
People break the law every day, believe me, I know a little bit about it.
I understand as well. So there's a lot of confusion here, and I think in closing, then I want to sort of tag on to the last two comments, and particularly to echo Susan's comments. What is the purpose? What is the problem that we are trying to solve here, and are we really creating a solution that has a problem that we are trying to solve, or are we in fact creating different problems by the way that we are sharing our community with our community members and modeling our behaviors for our kids?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. What's 5 minutes and 5 seconds? Okay, who's next? Ms. Schofield, please. Good evening. You're in your own home. Thank you again for allowing us to be here. And thank you again for everything you do in this community. This place does. Mr. Zoll's all smiles.
I felt I wanted to have a guitar today.
Good, thank you all.
Okay, any ideas for going home early?
Thank you all for visiting us here. It's nice to have you here. Truly,
We're happy to be here.
I'm just writing my,
Hopefully future boards will do the same.
yeah, it would be nice. So my name is Jill Clifton, I'm the director at the Art Center. And I'm speaking in support of alcohol on town owned, or et cetera. A couple of people have come up to me and said, what's all this about meth and alcohol? And we don't really want to be going for alcohol. That's really not our mission. But in context, as a nonprofit, we pulled permits this past year for the chamber to, in order to, because that was not done, the alcohol couldn't be on there, so we pulled the permits for them. We also sponsored a new event, with the chamber, Back to Business. It was about, and it was the first Friday event, in September. And it's a community event, organized for everyone, but really our end goal was really about opening up that space for musicians. It's a great space for music. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be, it's surrounded by, the highway, but when you're there, the acoustics are good. So that was our real goal for doing this, was to open up the space for musicians and, really for any event, for.
Did you have that plan?
That's why we put the work in of the event, was, in order to open it up for them. For that event, there's a lot of, and Joe, the head of the chamber, said a few of these things, but I want to emphasize that there's a lot of safeguards in place for events. First of all, you have to get permission from the select board. You have to get insurance. 2 police details that are hired. You have to apply for a 1-day alcohol permit for $50. You need a licensed vendor or tips, certified bartenders. And at Manning Park, the event has to be over at dusk, which was on September 6th, that was at 7:30. So everybody was up by 7:30. There's one point that I want to make is that Milton has over 5,000 households without children. When people come to events here, they sometimes will note that, it's nice to meet other people in town. If you don't have children, sometimes you're knocked out of meeting other people. And, in response, I just want to say these are responsible community-led events. They support artists, musicians, and adult connection. And I appreciate you bringing this back for more time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Do I have anyone else? Good evening.
Thank you so much for allowing me time to speak. My name is Margie Spear, and I live at 95 Granite Place.
I know that street.
I know you know that street, and in precinct 7. I am here tonight to talk about the bylaw because what has come up around drinking on public property, it's not the drinking on public property that I have issue with. I started my career as a clinical social worker, and I was working in drug rehabilitation centers. And I was working particularly with young people, 18 to 20-year-olds, who were trying to get into recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. And alcohol addiction may not seem as big of a deal, but it is. And it was that time during my work as a social worker that I realized I wanted to work to prevent this from starting in the first place. So I went on an entire career path in public health, got my doctorate in intervention design, and spent 20 years focusing on adolescent substance use prevention. And that's what I do. I'm a professor at the Tufts University School of Medicine, and I design interventions around adolescent substance use prevention. So I have a very specific expertise in this area, and I'm targeted by places around the country for my opinion and my thoughts on how to prevent substance use. And in fact, I'm giving a talk next week on this exactly. And my issue is not with alcohol. It's not with drinking on public property. It's with the modeling and socialization that we do with our children around alcohol, particularly in this town. I have lived here for over 10 years. I have 2 kids in the Milton public school system. Our street, as you well know, is extremely popular on Halloween. And I see people walking by with their solo cups and, this socialization around alcohol, around Halloween, which is really couldn't be more about kids than any other holiday. We are socializing our children around alcohol. It is a very different thing to have a 21 plus wristbands, the safeguards that Susan spoke about before. That is very different to do that than say, we're gonna allow drinking, particularly for events that are specifically for our kids. What does that say to our children that we as adults cannot enjoy ourselves without alcohol? The first speaker talked about how for the Halloween stroll, adults were saying this shouldn't be all about the kids. Really? It's Halloween. It should be about the kids. This is specifically about the kids, and it should stay about the kids. He also said that this park, the goal of this was to bring everyone together to enjoy the beautiful park. Why do we have to show kids that we as adults cannot have fun without alcohol? That is something that when we socialize kids, and this happens even more so for younger teens than older teens. They see parents drinking, they see their friends' parents drinking, and they see their parents' friends drinking, family members. Again, there is a way to do this responsibly, but it doesn't have to be all the time. And events that are centered around children should really not have a focus on alcohol. And I feel extremely strongly about that. And again, this is my entire field. And so I understand the role that normalization and socialization have in adolescent substance use. So I would implore you to think about the safeguards around adult alcohol use and have any bylaw that may be changed, have events that are focused on youth, not involve alcohol. Thank you.
It's 8:07. Anyone else? Coming together?
We're gonna
Okay, okay.
make it even faster. Sure. All right. Go ahead.
Long time no see, Mr. Kidd. Welcome.
What else? Thank you for having us. I'd like to make a few comments about alcohol consumption in the town. My name is Steve Keel, Stephanie Keel. I've lived in town for close to 44 years. I've raised 3 boys here.
Many instances, many issues over the years.
You have probably met a couple of them.
No. You've been a warrior on many issues over the years.
I have a background in substance addiction, prevention, intervention, treatment, recovery services at the local, state, and national level. And I'd like to just make a few comments about the article that's being discussed tonight. We know that drinking patterns, including the age of onset and the frequency of drinking, are correlated with adult drinking patterns and the risk of developing alcohol-related problems later in life. That's pretty much a fact. Much has been written about this by many institutions and organizations, and I'm not going to go into that tonight. I'm spending a lot of time. This is one of the main reasons, as the town considers this article, that we want to get it right, we want to protect it. You're all on board with that. Many towns, cities in Massachusetts and across the country have grappled with the same or similar issue. There are many examples of proven regulations, guidelines put into place that allow for alcohol consumption on public property and yet protect youth. Why don't we borrow some or all of these ideas that are already in place that have been used by some of these communities to either enhance or flush out some of the things that we already have? I don't have those particular ones with me, but I can show you, for instance, Town of Wakefield has a list of regulations that are specifically pointed out, written down, talk about location, talk about cordoned off areas, talk about the number of drinks that can be purchased, talk about IDs, talk about tips training, and a number of things. That could be refined, but there's some really good guidelines here. Town of Winchester's done some.
We do those, the guidelines, yeah, almost mirror that exactly.
Yeah, it's not, maybe there's done something. And I'm just saying, we have examples, proven examples out there. Why don't we borrow some ideas from them and maybe enhance what we have? We also have local expertise in the Milton Coalition that we could play, and they could play an active role in the development of this article. Why don't we involve them in this process as we go through? We're going to be stronger together if we do. As opposed to having some adversarial relationships, why don't we get together and see if we can come up with something that we're going to pass this article, we want to have alcohol in certain settings. Why don't we do it in a way that is very carefully laid out? Guidelines are strong, we all agree with them, and we can protect our youth the best way possible. We really have an opportunity here to model good adult behavior for youth regarding the consumption of alcohol. I just taking a word for a twist on that. Because alcohol is legal. People do consume alcohol. We can model good behavior if we set out to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Margaret Carroll's, 19 Gibbons Street, precinct 4. Thank you for having this tonight. I'm here really to echo what a lot of my friends and colleagues have said. There is a compromise that we can come to. We can include some protections in this bylaw to make it safer for our youth and our children and our teens specifically. And there are plenty of best practices, many of which have been talked about here, including secure perimeter around serving areas, ID checks at the entrance to those serving areas, wristbands to identify attendees aged 21 and over, distinguishable cups that allow for the identification of alcohol versus alcohol-free beverages, alcohol advertising that's limited to inside designated serving area, limiting the number of drinks, limiting alcohol drinks by ABV, restricting one-day licenses to events that are centered on adults. And I'd also love to see the select board consult with the Board of Health or the Substance Use Prevention Coalition on best practices in order to prevent present and future youth substance use and binge drinking. And concerning the rules and regulations for the one-day liquor license, I do think that should be looked at on a regular basis. I've looked at it a lot lately, and I think it needs to be updated. And there are plenty of examples out there. At the February town meeting, you did include some very specific instructions in the bylaw, like the tips training, and I think some specific recommendations or specific requirements for outdoor events should be included if you choose to make any changes for that. And there's plenty of expertise in town that can help with that.
Thank you. Will you leave the Wakefield one with me? Bless you. Thank you.
Wakefield,
Whichever two, whatever you have, I'll take them.
Wakefield, Manchester.
Okay. Ms. Milan will take both of those from me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I said 10 past, I want to be on the 10 past. Mr. Zulus, go ahead.
Thank you, members of the board. So this is good government. And it seems to me there is compromise for those who seek it, and there is consensus for those who wish it. It seems to me that there have been some general suggestions that could be included, 4 or 5 suggestions that could be included in this bylaw to make it a win-win. These are not newfangled things. These are best practices that have been used before in communities, not just Wakefield, but Natick, and there's a Wisconsin project and a Wyoming project. And so these are best practices that have been used.
We're not going to Wyoming. We don't have the money.
No, we use some of the lessons in Wyoming. So these are best practices that have been used before. And it seems to me it can be a win-win for this community to meet the needs of the Arts Center, meet the needs of the Chamber of Commerce, while providing the protection that our public health professionals have told us are very important. So thank you for having this. I think this is great government, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kevin, Mr. Dan. Kevin Dan Bruce, the associate, I don't even know whose titles.
Kevin Dimmock, I'm also on the board here at Milton Arts Center and also very active in the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, you are.
So just a couple of comments. So Manning Park right across the street here, it's an underused resource here in town. It's even been poked fun at, this big operation that, took so much money and time and not much happens there. But we proved that wrong back in the fall with this event, the Back to Business event. It was a wonderful event. There's a video on Milton Cable that they took some great video of that. You can see families having a great time. You don't feel like you're on the expressway. It's a great space to be. It's a great place for live music. It's a great place for people to get together and socialize. Couple of comments that, and when it comes down to it, this whole topic we're talking about, that's basically the piece of land that we're talking about. Of course, maybe a couple of other parcels, but
Farmers market.
yeah, farmers market too.
Farmers market.
A couple of comments that came up early today were, someone stated earlier, public land belongs to all of us. It's not kind of, we love to have children's events that are focused on children, but another comment that was made, 5,000 households in town don't have children. You know, why are we limiting the use of this piece of land strictly for basically children events? If you're gonna have an adult social event, let's be honest, you know, I looked it up, at least 70 to 90% of adult social events do include the availability of alcohol. If you're gonna have a successful social event for adults, you really do have to have that availability, that option anyway. To block off that option of even making it possible is just, it's cutting off a lot of possibilities for a big portion of the town here. That's about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If it's all right, I think we're good. I'm going to close this hearing for right now. Is that all right? Okay. So,
Discussion.
yes, all discussion. So I'll close it. So motion made by Mr. Zoll. I'll second. So I was closing the hearing. All those in favor? Aye. And then we'll get into discussions. I have a lot to say, but I'll go last as I normally do, because I kind of, like, for those who are here, I kind of take responsibility for this as the one who figured it out and one who really wanted to see this happen. For full disclosure, I was the first one to rent, not rent, but to host. Like Mr. Zoll, music is very big in my home, and Senator Driscoll and myself rented a stage and hired sound people, and we hosted a concert there at the end of school, I think 3 years ago. My wife's band, and as well as also Mark Morris and Catherine's, and I believe it was that where it got the name, the Oasis on the Island, that because I had never heard it before, but I knew then that there was some potential. But I'll come back then, let the other members comment first, and then anyone else, anybody. Go, Mr. Zoll.
I just didn't.
So he took notes. Oh, it's good.
To do work. I think, you know, I first, I would love to have Mike show up and cheerlead us at every meeting. We're doing good government. It feels really good to hear that. I do think that this is good government, and I do, you know, I appreciate that, you know, we have a limited microphone for those, you know, to notify folks. So for Ms. Clark, I'm sorry that you know, you didn't find out about it in time, but I, you know, several of the suggestions that came up here, I think were excellent. I think we should think about the language in the bylaw to include some of that specific, some of those specific suggestions. I mean, this is proven science. You know, we've made tremendous progress in town in one area. We don't have kids partying in the woods the way that we used to do. I've been, you know, on the youth task force previously, and I still get updated from the security at Cunningham Park, and it's been cut down dramatically. And a lot of that's been because of the education of parents about what those parties really look like. So I think that we can do both things, right? We can have events that have alcohol in a responsible way, and we can make sure that folks are aware of the dangers that alcohol, for in particular children and modeling bad behavior have. So, you know, I think part of that modeling behavior is, you know, having things like a cordoned off area. I think all of us have been to festivals and places where, you know, you have to have a wristband, you have to have your ID checked. I think that sounds really very sensible. I might throw in there too, also availability of non-alcoholic spirits, like any beer.
They do that as well. They do.
Yeah, I think, you know, just to, you know, some folks that are in recovery or that just don't feel like drinking, but want to hang out and have a, you know, what looks like a beer and tastes like a beer, but isn't a beer. I think there's a lot of possibilities here. I would love to see a little more work on the language of the bylaw. I don't know that, you know, it's true that we can go back to town meeting. It's not zoning, so we're not prohibited to go back, you know, for 2 years. But I do think it would make sense to have maybe a little bit more content in what the outdoor licensing would look like before we get it signed off. I'm cognizant of the fact that we have a town meeting in a couple of weeks, and it's hard to get language together like that quickly. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that nobody wants to drink beer on at the park in January, so we're probably talking about trying to get something done for the summer.
Yes.
Those are my thoughts, and I'd just like to close by thanking you, Mr. Chair, for having this hearing, by making sure that we had a lot of people here to participate in it, because I do think that these kinds of open discussions are really healthy, and I do think that compromise is possible.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Go ahead.
I agree with my colleague, and I'd like to thank all those who spoke, because I think we had some very good ideas, and I think we can incorporate those ideas into some workable solution.
So the first thing I think we need to do, because even though we have town bylaws, as anyone, as Attorney Zoll, anyone else who's attorney knows, that much of what is outlined in these ones codified under chapter 138. So, because that's usually what we give our licenses under, whether it's a 1 day or if it's, which is now it's actually the preferred way in Massachusetts to have applicants for 1 day licenses, which is similar to what they do to the back here, use someone that has the statutorily approved caterer's license, because they have to meet almost everything that you've talked about tonight as far as requirements, just to have that. And that's an annual license that's approved under chapter 132A today, because one of the difficulties, and just to kind of let everyone know, in Milton alone already, those who host events getting 1 day liquor licenses, which this was not an unusual, like, I'll take not the credit, I'll take the hit for thinking of it. Curry, Hutchinson Field, Trustees of the Reservation, Forbes House Museum, Milton Academy. One of the biggest ones now is Historic New England, Eustis Estate, hosting events with liquor all the time. Holt's Pond, DCR, Blue Hills, all of them have hosted. Suffolk. So when we thought of the idea, and to both Ms. Bradley and Mr. Zoll, I'm with, like, to those on the public health side, and particularly to my long friend, Mr. Keel, and I mean that, like, he knows. I mean, I spent 40 years in public safety in this town. I've seen the worst of the worst, whether it's a 10-year-old, a 3-year-old, or an 80-year-old. So when those who are in the public health field talk about the hazards of alcohol, I get it. When my neighbor talks about people walking around with, I get it. When I was first going to my daughter's baseball games, I saw it. So I understand that. And that's, I want to refer to the person who, the town meeting member who said it. We're not looking to have keg parties anyway. And we're not looking, to me, on it, absolutely, I'm not even looking to have them with, like, the Kellys, the Andrews, the Shields, Manning Park, and what will now be the new, well, if it's approved, I see Mr. Callahan's here tonight, the new park that's being designed for site of where the Milton Farmers Market is held now, are places where I believe as a public safety professional, more than even an elected official, is articulated by both the gentleman from the chamber and especially our friends at the MAC, can be done. I've watched it's been done, and they've done it. So you want me to tell me to wrap it up? Okay. So that's where I'm at on it. But thank you all. We'll take those and then, okay, go ahead, absolutely.
Thank you. So on our packet, Nick, it's listed under the June 16th meeting.
Correct.
And is that where it's gonna stay? Is it not going on the May town meeting?
That was not, we had talked about pulling stuff off of May, so.
So that's why it's on
discussion, we
June.
pushed it to June.
And once
I'm
it's,
okay with June.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Once it's passed, does it have to go through the AG's office?
Yes,
So that could take the rest of the summer.
90 days essentially.
But I think
So we're in October.
we'll be all right by October. If it
Okay.
passes in June, I think we would.
Okay.
So which is that the process?
Yeah, I just want to make sure
I'm
that
okay with that.
we're processing
Okay.
properly.
90 days from upon submission.
Submission.
So turning around, getting everything done.
Sometimes it's even faster.
Well, not always.
So, we okay with that? So,
So if members wanna, so what I can do is I've heard a couple of comments that
can you
folks
just,
are interested in, so I can recirculate a draft incorporating some of the comments that folks made. And
And can you do me a favor, pull 138
Yeah,
and pull out anything? Some of this is already listed, a lot of, and we don't want to duplicate our effort.
okay.
And then we can look at some of the others.
And do we want to limit it to certain public
I
spaces?
don't even want to get into that. I did think of it, but let that be an argument at town meeting. I did think of it though.
Throwing it on.
I mean, you can always start by limiting it, and then if people are like, well, we should have added site X or something new is developed, then you can add.
Yeah, I can think of 3 places, the gazebo, the scenario you told me about.
I didn't even think of the gazebo.
Weddings.
Yeah.
The toast fair,
Hmm.
right?
That was Miss Mustard who
Yeah.
convinced me of that. So that space,
Right.
the 88 Wharf Farmers Market space and Manning,
Okay.
if we want to.
You could also limit the number annually to like 10 or something like
We
that.
tried that before within the statute.
It doesn't allow you to limit it.
It's only limited by statute of 1 days. A location can only have
That's
28.
Any applicant. An applicant is limited, and so uses or forms will get 30
Can
per
get,
year.
yeah.
We could have, so Milton could have as many as they wanted, as
I don't
long as
see
it
a
wasn't the
school. I don't see
same.
a school.
No, it's
Yeah.
not done.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
safeguards it.
Because maybe we can start charging for people to get married on this gazebo.
I think we already do. No, we do.
Let's,
We can make some more money if they can have
Let's make
champagne.
some-
All right, let's get going. All right, thank you all very much, and we'll move on, we'll close the hearing, moving on, okay.
yeah, number 5.
Number 5, item 5, discussion of update approval, Community Preservations Committee FY 2026 project recommendation. Good evening, you don't have to sign in, but you could just stay in there.
Thank you. My name is Tom Callahan, and we think for 16 Orono Street, precinct 4 town meeting member and chair of the Community Preservation Committee.
Jenny Russell, a large vice chair of the Community Preservation Committee and 190 Central.
Peter Jackson, 14 Haven Street. I'm the fiscal liaison between the committee and the town.
Great. Thank you for the invitation and to talk about what is one of Milton's, I think, we're a little biased, but success stories over the last 4 years.
We're gonna talk about that tonight. Go ahead.
Good. We love talking about the Preservation Act and how it's been implemented over the last 3 years. So I'm going to go through briefly a short slide presentation, and Nick is going to help me advance the slides, or he is going to advance the slides. So first of all, the committee is a committee of 9 people. You just met 3 of them. In addition to the 3 of us, Joe Duffy, representing the Housing Authority, Wendy Garpo, the Conservation Commission, Rob Levash, the Parks and Rec representative, Kathleen O'Donnell at large, Cheryl Pagayas, representative the Planning Board, and Linda Well, the Historic Commission. So essentially, there are 6 seats from committees and commissions and 3 at-large seats. This slide also features our general advertisement, especially around this time of year. We solicit applications from residents and town departments and everyone in town. So the deadlines coming up for the eligibility application are for FY 26 is due on May 30th. So there's still a little bit of time for people to get those eligibility applications, which is a streamlined application. And then for full funding, if the eligibility application is accepted and advances to the next round, the full funding deadline is due September 26th. Next slide. Community Preservation Act, I think most people know here in this room about it, but there are people watching, as you said, Chair Wells. So this has been an enormous statewide success program too. In year 2000, Governor Cellucci signed the Community Preservation Act into law. It's enabling legislation that depends on local communities to adopt it. And the only way local communities can adopt it is by a vote of the voters. In Milton, in 2020, 63% of voters in the November election, so it was a large turnout, voted in favor of assessing a 1% surcharge on their own property taxes with some exemptions, and we can get into that. That is raising right now approximately 800,000 or so in local revenue, and makes us eligible to receive a state match every year. So, but this is a slide with just some statistics, and won't go into all of them, but 200 communities now have adopted it. Milton is one of those 200 communities. Over 70% of the state's residents live in a community with CPA. It's raised $3.4 billion in the last 25 years, 37,000 acres preserved, over 30,000 housing units either built or supported, and 7,600 historic preservation projects. Next slide. One of the things we do as community preservation is we put together committee is put together a plan. We're in the process of updating our plan for 2025, and probably at our next meeting will be finalized, and we'll have a newly published, updated community preservation plan. We really appreciate that our applicants often cite the plan as and cite parts of the plan as to why they're applying for this type of project. The plan hopefully has been helpful to applicants to whether their project is one, eligible, or two, fits in with some of the priorities that the Community Preservation Committee has established. Next slide. It's been a growing success. First year out of the gates, we got 15 eligibility applications, and we're able to fund 11. 23 eligibility applications in the next year, we were able to fund 13. And this year, 24 eligibility applications initially came in with what is going to town meeting, not yet funded, but 15 recommended. Next slide. This is assuming approval at town meeting, and we've been blessed to have town meeting overwhelming support at town meeting the first 2 years. But this is assuming this year's slate is adopted. This is the split of money essentially, almost 42% going to open space and recreation, 31% to community housing, and 27% historic preservation. We have not, as a committee, taken a hard position of a third, but that is a general thing we keep in mind. We'd like to keep the three legs of the stool relatively equal as we evaluate projects. So a total of $3.8 million in funding over the 3 years. Next. We also try to keep some balance in mind when we evaluate projects in terms of town initiated, what I call town department or town commission projects initiated by Parks and Rec or Conservation Commission or the Select Board. 61% of our funding has gone to town initiated projects. The thing about CPA that's really neat is the fact that voters have to vote for this. And I think in many communities across the Commonwealth, and certainly here in Milton, we are proud of the fact that 39% are resident-led initiatives. That is this is a grassroots law. It's a law that encourages people to dream about what could be improved in their neighborhood. Walking trails, what have you. So 39% of our projects didn't come from, it didn't initiate with the town government, but initiated with town residents. So we're proud of that balance. So next slide, please. We also are proud of this balance, even though this seems a little maybe out of balance to some people, but 90% of the projects are actually ready to go, projects that will result in new open space or improved playgrounds or new housing or historic preservation, preserved. Less than 10% of our projects have been to studies of plans. And that's, we are proud that we have the flexibility within CPA to fund studies and plans. There's a couple, we're sitting in a great example of where we funded last year a study for the Art Center windows. Small amount of money. They had to bring in a historic preservation, this is a historic building, historic preservation consultant to create a plan for how to replace or improve or restore the windows here. On the slate for this town meeting is an actual funding of those windows project. So that study, Pepperly Park started with a study. It's now a project. And there's a number of examples where our studies have turned into full-blown projects even over the first 3 years. Next slide, please. Here are the top 5 projects we funded to date. Winter Valley expansion, 36 units for low-income seniors. The Forbes House barn renovation, Pemberley Park playground, the LED lighting upgrade at the Middle Guile Fields, and the Milton lockup are the top 5 over the first 3 years. Next slide. These are just the articles. This was a presentation we also gave at the warrant committee last week. So this is Article 34, I believe, which is just setting the budget for next year. And next slide. Article 35 is our slate of funded projects for this year, recommended projects. We're pleased that the warrant committee unanimously voted last week to recommend a yes vote. Next slide. And next slide. And then these are just 3 examples of what's in this package in front of town meeting this year. The receiving tomb at Milton Cemetery. I've walked by it a number of times. I didn't appreciate its history or what it was actually, but
I've been inside the door.
And recently it's been used. They've actually been used as recently as in COVID, where we, because of this tomb, we were able to temporarily store remains that other communities didn't have a similar place when I think in the winters particularly we couldn't take graves. But it's received little to no repair or maintenance over its 145 years. So we're pleased to recommend funding for this. Next slide. The Collie Cotton Cunningham Play Yard improvements, that's a PTO sponsored project. They come to us, a substantial private fundraising, as well as hopefully the town meeting sees fit, some CPA funds. And next slide. And the aforementioned Wharf Park Rehabilitation Project, which we funded a couple of initial, some planning for that, and starting to get into some furthering of those plans and funding of hopefully eventually construction. This project we've really been impressed with the progress of, and they've worked with the farmers market folks and the select board and trying to keep advancing this project forward. So I think that is it. So I don't know if Paige or Jenny want to say anything, but that's my presentation.
Oh, no, that was great, Tom. The only thing I would add is that for each of these categories, the state requires a 10% commitment of the funds that we have. So we start with that as a baseline, and then from there we grow it. That's for clarification.
Questions, comments? Ms. Musto.
Thank you. Could you explain a little bit about when we first went into this program, what the state match was in terms of % dollars as well, and where we've been the past couple of years and what the future trend looks like?
Yeah. So we, during the campaign, I was part of the Yes campaign on this. During the campaign, the campaign committee estimated that our first year match would be 25%. First year match actually turned out to be 31%. We received matches of 31%, peak, 18%, and the projection this year is 14%. CPA is a victim of its own success at the state level. 200 communities have now adopted it. So that pie gets split by more and more communities every year. The other thing that's happening is that the state match is reliable in the sense that it's not based subject to appropriation. But it is based on a $50 fee at the registry of deeds. And when refinancing activity goes to almost zero, which is what we're at now, those funds suffer. So we're suffering something on the collection side because of the current mortgage rates, basically. And we're also suffering because every year more communities adopt it. 4 more communities this November, another community has it on this spring. So that's I was actually just at the State House today, ironically, for a briefing that the statewide Community Preservation Coalition did for legislative aids. We are preparing for next year a package that will go to what hopefully be introduced by some of their supporters in the legislature. We'll seek to do a number of things, but to increase that state match. And that's exactly what happened in 2019, I think it was, where that match is going down to as little as 11%. And that legislation resulted in us getting a 31% match that first year.
Thank you.
I think the only other thing that I would say related to the state match is from 2019, when it really got low, up until last year, funding for the CPA was included in a supplemental budget, which really, artificially inflated how much the state could match. But last year, there was no item in the supplemental budget, and, we don't anticipate one this year. So, part of Tom's work with the legislature is to try to get both the governor and the legislature to support supplemental funding, since so many communities have adopted the program. We really want to keep the state match up.
Thank you.
The one other piece of clarification in terms of income that we were thinking about is that some towns have as much as a 3% tax on property rights in Milton. It's, it's 1%.
1%, right.
So it could change. I mean, we could propose, let's up the 1%. Probably not a good time to do that right now. But in terms of thinking about revenue in the future, that's a possibility.
I was just going to follow up with, it gradually has gone down from the state. I mean, I have friends that are in different towns, and when they entered it, it was a lot higher. So given you're at the State House, and given the budget, I would say that I would anticipate it's probably going to go down.
Well, it has gone down and gone back up again. Like I said, it went from 11% to 31%. Because of the state action in 2019. So it's not just been a continual downward slope. The interesting thing about CPA from a political point of view is it's a powerful constituency. 200 communities representing 70% of the state's residents have CPA. That's a lot of state reps and a lot of state senators who want to bring home the bacon for their communities. So it's gonna go back up. I promise it will go back up.
You heard it here first, everybody. You heard it here first.
I've been part of the Community Preservation Coalition for
I have a
25
caucus tomorrow.
Tom said that.
for 25 years. But it is, I mean, once Boston adopted it.
Right,
once,
that was the.
Springfield adopted it. Once New Bedford and Fall River adopted it. We now have cities with the towns and rural communities in Western Mass. It's a great coalition. other issues would be envious of that coalition. So we'll work at it. It sometimes takes several years for it to go back up, but we will be out there. Full disclosure, I happen to chair the statewide community preservation coalition and have for a number of years.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I don't know that that is going to be going up anytime soon. We're looking at a massive Medicaid shortfall and other things that are coming from the federal government. So with all due respect, I'd rather have people keep their health insurance than for us to fix some playgrounds and historical things. I'm just saying that because
It doesn't compete with those, because it's a lockbox trust fund.
that they have at the state,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
not part of the free cash.
No,
No.
no, it doesn't compete with.
All right, well then I take all my back.
No, but
And that's the other beauty. It's a really elegantly designed law. Really, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a really elegantly designed law that doesn't have to compete with those, as you point out.
Yeah.
Very compelling.
See, when I learn things, I can take things back.
Not to get off subject, but the one you just mentioned, Ms. Bradley's enormous.
I know, I read about it today.
Go ahead, Mr. Zoll.
Sorry. Could you just let us know a little bit? So I think it's fantastic that 40% of these proposals that are funded, 40% of the funding is going to citizen-led petitions. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with folks if they come in with an idea to get them to a compliant place? Because we know lots of people come in with great ideas, but they're not always immediately ready to go to CPA.
So I probably should let my colleagues of the committee talk, because I've been
Taking all
some
that.
impatience sometimes, and I'm like, do we really need 2 rounds, the eligibility round and the full funding round? These guys talk me out of that every time, because the eligibility round plays a really important role in what you're just talking about. Where people come in with an idea, it might not be fully baked, it might not even be eligible. A few times some of those non-funded projects were just not eligible for CPA uses. But it allows the committee to engage with those citizens and talk that through. Talk about whether it is eligible, certainly, but also how other funds could be could be raised privately to because we don't, we only have $1 million. It's great that we have $1 million, but it's with 24 applications. What was this year? I think we
Started at 4.6.
4.6 million in requests at the initial eligibility phase. And we only have $1 million basically to fund. So it helps us refine those projects. It helps us we've been able to connect some projects together and getting people to talk to each other. So it's been, it's a really fun committee to be on because of that type of engagement and interaction we can have with town residents. But
Yeah, no, the two-tiered system really helps, and that it sort of flushes out and encourages a discussion. And in some cases, some folks have come in with a great, balloonish idea and have walked away with, after some conversation, maybe there should be some planning first. And maybe some community discussions, that kind of thing, before you come back with a full.
The other thing that we've pushed a lot is getting outside funding, matching funding, going for grants, doing some local fundraising and things like that, so that we can kind of expand, the scope of what we're able to do by making the money go further. And by having a 2-stage process, we can get people to really focus more and look more broadly to allow us to fund a greater number of projects.
That would be a great number for your presentation, actually, how much matching funding you have helped land.
Yeah.
that's a good, yeah.
So that's part of why you're here. That's part of the reason I brought you in here, is that some of the grantees are frustrated that they're so close and they can't get full funding, they can't get their projects completed without going to specifically, when they show already. So specifically, Heavily Park is one, Farmers Market is the second. At least for me, I wear multiple hats. This hat, I do state hat, but I very involved in private funding in this town for many, many years to the highest level. And that's even been discussed by other private entities, like why we have to, I'll just be very blunt, so you get $122,000 in studies. With that 122,000, would probably fund Beverly Park, and they'd be ready, they're shovel ready,
Yeah.
they just don't have the money.
They need 71.
Yeah, the key thing about Beverly Park is that, as I'm sure you heard that presentation, there isn't even a park on that side of the parkway. That'll be the only thing that exists. And the town's taking all kinds of, as town meeting voted, to carve this out in perpetuity, you know, it's between Conland and Parks Land. That's something that was brought to us and so when I looked at some of the studies, I'm like, I don't know if these will ever get done. Like the one Holmes Pond is DCR land, and the rep before me had talked to me about that project because his feeling was that should go to DCR. They should be paying for that building. DCR's put nothing in it. It's historic as that building is, unlike the York Club, and I'm just using this buildings that are similar in age that are like that's you're putting money towards the possibility of 11 Russell Road, and there's a rep in Boston who has a completely different idea what he wants to do with that, and he's got a lot more seniority than we do. So like, I just don't want to waste any dollars. Like Beverly Park, and I'm only saying, and I said it like we got to bring this in because when I started to add up just this, and I'm not, you're right, you know, you get a study and you get reality. But when you're so close of just that much, one less study in one given year, or two less studies in a given year can make something like Beverly Park a reality. To us, that's just a win-win. That's a win-win.
So we love Beverly Park, the playground project.
We do too.
We funded it 3 years in a row. So I think it's the only project we funded for 3 years in a row. We love the project. It needs another $300,000 or $400,000.
No, I don't think it's that much.
That's what the budget they showed us.
The GoFundMe is
Yeah.
set at some.
So we could not fund it in its entirety. But let me shift to one thing. We, at our last meeting, brought in Stuart Sagamore, who's the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition. And we had him do a presentation for not just us, but also for the town accountant and the town treasurer and the town administrator on bonding. We have not bonded yet.
Right.
110 of 200 communities have bonded CPA. Now we're new.
That was one of Catherine O'Donnell's big
And
ideas.
that would allow us to take a look at a Wharf Park, or Beverly Park in a different fashion. And a possibility of funding a higher percentage of it.
The exact reason we bought.
So, yeah, exactly. So now that restricts us in future years because we have to pay debt service out of the CPA revenue stream. So there's a flip side to that as well. But we had Stuart in, it was a great presentation. I think he made all of us feel like it's not rocket science to do this. A lot of CPCs have recommended and have successfully bonded funds and worked with their town treasurer and successfully in that. So that is something, going forward, we can take a look at. But yeah, we love that project, and we've done,
And we specifically asked the Beverly Park folks, is that with this amount of money, will you be able to build something? And they said yes. So it's not as if they have to wait to fund the whole thing. They will be able to get started as soon as the money is.
No, I don't think so.
That's not.
They said,
No.
that's what I'm saying. That's what they told us.
No.
They'll be able to
No.
part of the park.
I think we've had a project in town on town park that we're not able to start unless you, hence,
I'm just saying.
they don't follow the animal shelter for the last
They're not saying,
15 years.
we're not saying that they start on the whole project, but they carve out phase one that they can do with the existing funding while they continue to pursue, phase two. And then.
I haven't seen anything like that. Not that we've seen. Remember.
And could you build a small portion of the playground?
You could.
Back a year later, add on to it, sure, could you prep the site and then come back to it a year later, but that's assuming it's gonna get more funding from private sources or from other town sources or from CPC in future years. So to start building something without knowing what the end product will look like.
Yeah.
I think it's from discussion with members and Tom and I having a conversation too, but it's like, are these, in taking a big step back, is a playground to be built in Milton, a new playground? Does that need to be something that isn't funded 100% by the town? Or 90% of the town, or 80, like, it doesn't feel like there's necessarily a game plan in terms of what that split should be, or whether there should be a split in the first place and what that split should be. So I think that's part of the bigger conversations that we would like to have moving forward, so that we have parents who have other jobs, and I know that's been successful in the past, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be successful, that a group will be able to raise that kind of money when there are other resources.
Playground planners raised a whole bunch.
Yeah, I mean,
Problems playground.
That was before CPC.
before CPA, so it's like Lone Planners, successfully did an extraordinary fundraising job. We're not trying to put additional burdens on, but we also are trying to help Beverly Park, right? One member of our committee, Rob Lavash, has sat with folks. They took initial steps. Matter of fact, some of our early money was helping them set up a 501c3 so that they could apply for grants. So we've been trying to assist them the best we could. $250,000 is the appropriation in front of town meeting this year. So that's a big chunk towards the $600,000 budget that they have presented.
75,000 the year before.
And then 75,000 and 40,000 the year before that. So again, it's 365,000 invested in that project. We want to see that successful. We would anticipate if there's still some need coming forward next year, we would be willing to entertain that from Beverly Park. I agree. I live on that side of town.
Right, I believe they're getting some in-kind coming. It's not.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. I talked to
Lisa.
Lisa and her colleague, who are doing a great job, and we're trying to, do everything we can within our power to see them successful, because that's a great project.
Can I ask one question?
Okay.
What is the financial, I mean, you have the bank, what's the financial liaison? Is that on every CP, is that a role on every CPA?
They recommend that you have somebody.
I work with, the assessor's office, the accounts office, and the treasurer's office to come up with an estimate of the year's local receipts. And then I work with the Community Preservation Coalition, who works with the DOR to, estimate what
you're gonna get.
is gonna be. I had to work very hard at the treasurer's office because the previous treasurer refused, although it's required in the law, he refused to set up a separate account for this so they could track interest income, and we're due interest income on all that money. So, working with the treasurer's office, we got them to set up a separate account so they can track and give us the interest that we're due on that. And so, I work with them to create this budget each year for the budget articles. So
Does the money from the registry of deeds come annually, monthly? How's it come?
It doesn't come to the town at all. So this is one of the misconceptions, but so the money from the registry of deeds collected by Norfolk County, but every other county, and it goes into a state trust.
Because when he files his report,
and then it gets distributed back out. So we probably wouldn't want to get just the registry activity in the town of Milton, because our match is probably more than we're getting. It was one of the arguments to pass it, right? In 2020, a number of voters said, wait, our registry of deed fees are going to fund CPA in Canton or in Braintree, and that was true. So now 150 communities are contributing to their registry of deeds fees to Milton and other communities. So it's a statewide pool that gets then distributed out based on 20% of what you raise locally, or 18%, or whatever the match is that year.
Because he sends his annual report to all the residents and makes all the money's coming right to us. What do you
Mr.
think?
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Brandon, my
That's
bad.
okay, so I want to go back to the GoFundMe. So I just looked it up, they have a $75,000 goal for Beverly Park. Well, you just need to Google Beverly Park, GoFundMe, Milton, Mass, pops right up first thing. It's a $75,000 goal. That they are saying is securing the remaining 50% required for the playground construction. This has been up for 27 days. To date, they've raised $6,855. At this rate, the kids that could use it are gonna be in high school. So I guess my problem that I'm having with this, and Mr. Callahan, you and I spoke, and I heard you. I am still having issues with this, and I understand that, you know, everybody needs a little love, but I'm wondering why we aren't fully funding something that is absolutely shovel ready right now. And they're saying 50% is what's required. It's gonna take them.
It's not shovel ready.
It absolutely is shovel ready.
They have the design, they're finalized.
They have,
design,
they
so-
have a preliminary design, you know,
The
every
bid
plans,
package being-
specifications and things like that, but, you know, we worked with them very hard to get that, you know, so that they could do private fundraising. And they decided that the only way they could do it effectively was to get a 501c3, and so they've only had that for a couple months. So they're starting to put in applications for things, and it'll come, I mean, you know, if it's a priority for the town, it could go in the town's capital.
Do you ever foresee there being a project that you would fund 100%?
We funded some small, I mean, the window project here.
Well, that's what we're
we-
talking
we have
about
funded- We have funded some small projects 100%.
Capital would never fund the 501c3 project, it just couldn't happen.
Well, not a 501c3, but capital put a lot of money into the playground planners. You know, and the Copeland put in a lot.
I know,
And that's where,
all about
that's
it.
where we anticipated that that Beverly would go. But we continue to support it, we've given them much money, anything, so.
And I think they're applying for the, I've been told they're applying to the Ice House developer, they're applying to other
That would be great.
foundations, for funding.
So the ice house was given the in-kind. That's what my understanding is.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
Did they have?
Now let's get you out of here.
So I just want to this point, Ms. Bradley saying, on this list here, can you just go through and tell us which ones on this list are studies?
Sure, it all.
It says right on.
I just need to read it.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Not just on that list, but at the end of the article, there's a verbal
Okay,
description of each project.
because
And it identifies what-
it is really small.
I know, it was good for a PowerPoint presentation, tough to read.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 studies listed in there.
So, yeah, the Pine Tree Brook Neighborhood Association is a study in this, the study of, invasive species, basically, along Pine Tree Brook.
Excuse me, can you just also say the cost of each of these as you're going through? It's just for people that are watching as well.
Nice job.
It's a, sorry, 35,000, right? Yeah, 35,000.
Okay.
Thank you. There is a, study, for the Pagoda Circle Park. It's really a community engagement, process, to engage the residents around Pagoda Circle about how to restore and enliven, that park and do it with community support. That was a really fantastic, sort of grassroots effort. That's a $12,000 study. And yeah, the recreational master plan, that came to us, Kevin Prison, the head of Parks and Rec, came to us with a project that he felt like he's been trying to get funded in this town for many, many years. And he finally was able to get, CBA fund recommendation, and it's, at 45,000.
And they're getting a match of almost that much.
Right, right.
And the park department, you know, whatever the word is, application for some specific construction project, because they felt that this plan, they really needed an overall plan for all the town facilities in order to prioritize and determine which ones to bring forward first. So that was, you know, so that is a chunk, that was a study, but their concept was to help them prioritize and come up with scopes of work for projects that they would go for funding in later years.
in Wharf Park probably would fit most people's definition, but again, we can't get Wharf Park to where it's shovel ready unless we fund the studies.
Well, I get that, I get that.
Everly Park, the $40,000 got them to where they are today. So, I understand, I heard a little bit at the warrant committee too about, there's a couple, one or two members of the warrant committee were concerned about the study. That's why we did the tabulations, 9.6%. It's a pretty small slice of the CPA pie, and it's resulted in fundable projects. We're sitting in one right now. And Beverly Park is an example of it. Wharf Park is an example of it. So, I think this studies is a really defensible investment in future projects. Will some of them maybe not go forward? Possibly, but I think that's the beauty of CPA, that we have some flexibility to fund that type of investment in future ideas.
I guess I would just want to follow up one quick thing with, when you have these projects and you have these studies, if you have a project that, like some of these studies are like first time putting in for some of these studies, could they have been pushed off a little to finish up one of these projects, such as Beverly Park? That's what I'm looking at because, or we're looking at, some DCR properties, for instance, for studies of, well, we have something right here that could be finished potentially,
That's one of the
or
big-
close to finished. That's my question. Could it, you know what I mean?
So studies, so wouldn't come close to finishing.
Beverly Park presented $637,000. The $627,000 project was.
Total, $67.55.
I'm gonna,
So we couldn't have funded all of that.
The other thing I would say about the DCR project is they're looking for a custodian for the building and a use for that building. But adjacent to that building is 6.2 acres of park and rec property that's not used at all. And so we saw that as probably the major opportunity in town to create a new significant recreational opportunity. Because there's, together with the DCR property, there's close to 10 acres of property there.
we're very familiar with that piece of property, but
Yeah, so that's some of our thinking. I mean, we debate these things a lot.
so,
Just to reiterate that for this round, we had 24 applications and we're only recommending 15. So some of them were pushed off to next year.
we get that. To me, Pine Tree jumped out at me, as you're aware. We've been in a massive soup brought by 11 residents. When over 300 residents
This
came
doesn't have
to us.
anything to do.
No, I know that, but it's the same crew, it's the same, and currently, the DEP is defending their own decision. Approving that field, and this is right next to it, and that, to me, I was like.
That's it.
The investigator, it was like a red flag right away, where'd this come from, like, just,
With all respect.
No, and I'm not asking you, I'm not
It's a
asking
very
you, but it's
different
like,
very different.
I'm not, I just. All right, so we're not gonna vote this tonight, I don't think. Do we need to vote this tonight? No, so we're not gonna vote this.
It's on
tonight.
the, it's on the warrant, for May.
We already put it on.
All right, we're not gonna vote the specific article, I mean, I don't think, tonight,
Not tonight.
okay.
We always welcome the opportunity to come before you, and if you have any questions, you know how to reach us, and we're happy. Like I said, we're really proud of.
I get that, but I'm with Miss Bradley, when you see something so close, and I added up today, 122,000, like. To me, I was like, let's get this project done, and
Yeah, and we'd be happy to talk to them further. It's based on the budget they submitted, they're not that close. But, we want to see this project succeed. I can't emphasize that.
Yeah, you funded it for 3 years in a row, and
Yeah.
all of your hard work, we're all very grateful for it, because it really does make Milton a better place.
And even the second year of funding, they didn't meet our application deadline. They came in late and we really had to scramble to give, because we wanted to give them some seed money that they could use for private fundraising. So we had to reorganize everything after our deadline to give them $75,000 to
think that that could be seed money they could take to potential funders. You know, so I think we have bent over backwards to do everything we can for Beverly Park, and we will continue to do so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send this now, we got it.
Yeah, we're gonna-
What we do, we approve the warrant?
Number 6, the fiscal budget.
Discussion update approval FY 2026 budget, FY 2026 capital budget, Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, no updates on the budget, I let the select board know that the warrant committee had approved, the budget as submitted to the warrant committee, so that recommendation is going to the town meeting, they wrapped up their work last week. So no updates as of yet, at this moment rather, on the fiscal 26 budget, that warrant should be hopefully ready and online, first part of next week, and in the mailboxes, shortly after that. In terms of the capital budget, the capital budget is included in the warrant that I put in the packet. It's Article 4. It's $878,000 of free cash appropriations going to, equipment replacements, vehicle replacements, a few facilities projects, and then in terms of the bonded capital items, that's $4.8 million in bonded capital items. Fire engine to replace engine 2 on its rotational cycle, $1 million for roadway construction, $1 million for sidewalk construction, which are kind of our more annual typical approvals. In terms of the enterprise funds, some improvements for vehicle replacements, water meter replacements. Fairly typical capital budget. We've kept it where we would normally like to fund these, and regardless of the budget uncertainty, because we want to continue to invest in our capital facilities and infrastructure so we don't fall too far behind being able to. And I'll just flag in terms of one additional kind of a new item is that we're hoping to add some additional vehicles, EV charging stations at town facilities so that we can continue to expand our own fleet in terms of electric replacements for our administrative vehicles that don't have that frontline focus in terms of heavy duty equipment. So I have to take further questions in terms of the operating budget or the capital budget, but those are both in the packet that was distributed
Mr. Chairman.
in the packet.
Ms. Brown?
So may I ask, was this voted on by the warrant committee?
Yes,
Yes.
That is incorrect then, because we have not voted on this yet.
we're gonna do it right now.
But they can't vote on something until we do. And so I
I
just
thought
want
we
to
did vote
say,
on this.
no,
We
we did not, and I brought it up the last
And
time.
then didn't we vote?
No, because we hadn't seen it because it wasn't included in the packet. There are procedural things that are happening that we are not following. And that to me is not okay. So if the warrant committee voted to put this in the warrant, and it's in the warrant, and we haven't voted on it yet, therefore they can't do that.
It was submitted and approved by the capital approval planning committee.
But it wasn't by us. We have to approve that.
Capital committee has always been the
Yeah, I
submitting.
think we-
No, we have to, any article that is in the warrant is from either us or the planning board. We did not approve this.
You wanna do it now? It's on to be approved now.
I am fine with doing it now. That's not my point.
I
that
get
I'm
it,
trying
I
to
get it,
make.
procedure, okay, I get it.
It's, and Peter, of course, stepped out. As soon as he gets back, we can ask him, but he won't know the bylaw. But if there is a way that we could try and make this actually be procedurally proper moving forward, because I won't be here. And these things are not okay because we are technically violating.
I get it, I get it, I'm not, I get it.
And if that means we have to have an extra meeting, then we have to have an extra meeting. If that means the warrant committee needs to slow down, the warrant committee needs to slow down.
No, it wouldn't. I think we took the capital committee's recommendation and provided it to them, so they worked and did their work based on us telling them this is.
But the select board hadn't seen this capital budget until right now in this packet.
I thought we did see it, I just don't think we voted on it.
Absolutely did not see it, and Ms. Musto backed me up at our last meeting. It was not in our packet for the last one. Mr. Milano said that as well. This is the first time we are seeing the capital budget. I'm gonna vote for it it's fine.
I get it, you wanna correct the procedure.
I am saying that this is, it can bite us.
Right, okay,
So can we just cross our Ts and, loop our Ps? I'm looping my Ps.
That's a new one.
Because I do not want things like this slipping through the cracks
I get it,
moving forward.
a good one.
Okay.
Point well noted.
Thank you, thank you.
Nick is thinking there.
No,
He's trying to figure out if I'm wrong.
no,
No, he is.
we always take what capital votes.
So, yeah,
Right.
so it even says in the warrant, submitted by the select board, and we did not submit that.
No, that's right, I think,
So actually what should happen is we are gonna vote tonight, and the warrant committee should revote.
Yeah.
if it's unchanged, the recommendations, it's their recommendation, they've submitted the recommendation, this.
They are voting on something that we
We
can
can
change.
bring it
right?
to them, but I wouldn't be concerned about that process as long as there is no
Change.
Change.
Watch me change it by a penny.
Then you can have a green sheet accordingly.
Try to change it,
I'm
but
not changing it, I'm just saying.
I get it, you get it. I get
Somebody's
it.
gonna be watching this
Yeah.
stuff, whether it's Lynn or Peter or Nick or somebody.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the FY 2026 capital budget. Is that okay?
I will second that.
Thank you so much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 8, am I right? 8,
Seven.
7, discussion approval annual town meeting Monday.
I thought we already did that.
Warrant articles, move to approve the 2026 annual town meeting warrant. That's my motion.
Provided the warrants in the motion, in the packet, it includes all the articles, all the budget articles, the 3 additional articles outside of the budget are the, light trespass bylaw, the ADU bylaw, and the site plan review bylaw, otherwise they're budget articles that are annually recurring. Other than obviously the override dependent.
We voted on this last time.
Okay,
We are separating out the election warrant and the town meeting warrant, so we would like approval of both town meeting.
Yeah, but we don't
warrant
have
and
to, we don't have to do the,
Nothing to do on the
the
articles.
articles, right? I
Just
guess.
the warrant, the warrant is inclusive of the articles.
Warrant's
Yeah.
fine.
so I'm gonna make a motion.
I'll make a motion to
Okay,
approve the town meeting warrant. Is that right?
yeah, you got it, yeah, 2026 annual town.
2025.
Says here, move to approve 2026 annual town meeting warrant.
Yes.
Next year.
There's a typo.
FY 26 maybe? I don't know.
No,
No.
25.
it's
It's
a,
the regular town.
What'd you do that to me for? I'm ready to.
See if people pay attention.
because he's trying to give me an aneurysm before we get out of here in 21 days.
Don't say that, I had one once, don't say that.
Alright, so
Oh, so motion made by Ms. Bradley,
I'll
second by Mr. Cohen, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 8, discussion approval, April 29th, 2025, annual town election.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the special town meeting, nope. Yep, special town meeting on June 20,
No.
nope.
No,
1/11, April 29th, 2025 annual town election warrant.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
second by Ms. Musto, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 9, discussion, date approval. Special town meeting, June 16th, 2025. Warrant articles, see the list enclosed.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Why is, there's no mention in June about doing the MBTA Communities Act?
If I realized it tonight, I
Okay.
have a little, I hand wrote it. So, last night, the planning board, worked more towards, an MBTA community zoning article, so that would be, the primary reason to have a special town meeting,
Exactly.
so that will be on there. In addition, the planning board has submitted the East Milton Overlay District zoning article, the floodplain zoning article, which is an update here.
Those are there.
And then, as we discussed in terms of on town property, I know that the local historic district
Oh, there's
study
no-
committee has been working again on the bylaw. So we anticipate potentially.
Listen, we wanna keep this to one night in June, like one night, this is not going more than one
So
night. in June.
then, if there's going to be a fall town meeting, additional articles could
Okay.
appear in the fall, but as of right now, that's what we're carrying for placeholders. What's on the agenda plus MBTA communities.
Okay, so I moved to, it's okay with you, Mr. Chair?
Go
Let's
for it.
note that we've already approved that date, so no vote needs to be taken, and we don't have final articles, so I wouldn't.
So we would not, so that approval there is for nothing.
Correct, that was.
Gotcha. Keep going.
So number 10.
So not, letter to the Executive Office of Health and Human Services regarding hospital capacity and ongoing impacts of recent hospital closures.
I belatedly provided a draft of that, although I spoke, or Ms. Musto left me a message earlier, thinking that it needs some work, so.
We'll defer
So
that.
can we defer that? to
We'll
the
defer,
next
we'll
meeting?
defer that
And
to
then
the
I can
22nd.
take on that a
Item
little bit.
11,
Thank you.
change board of directors, Wallasby Golf Course.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the change of the board of directors at the Wollaston Golf Club.
Second.
Second by Ms. Musto. Motion by Ms. Valentino, all those in favor?
Aye.
Item 12, discussion approval.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the donation to the Milton Coalition from Mike's 5K to crush substance abuse in the amount of $16,000. Way to go.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Musto, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a reminder, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, April 29th annual town election. If you want to vote by mail, you do have to apply to vote by mail April 22nd at 5 p.m. It's the deadline to submit your vote by mail application. If you've already signed up, the first batches of the ballots should start going out this week or early next week. If you're not registered and want to register to vote, the deadline to do so is April 18th. That's a Friday, but the town clerk's office and town clerk's office, I should say, will be open until 5 p.m. That day, straight voter registrations. This weekend, the Sustainable Milton and DPW are teaming up for clean up Milton. Additional information is available on our website, social media, Sustainable Milton page as well. Folks who want to participate. Couple of public forums coming up, Town Farm Public Forum related to the future of Town Farm tomorrow night. That's at 7 p.m. at the Council on Aging, also available on Zoom. Next Thursday night, April 17th at 7 p.m. Planning Board is holding a forum on MBTA communities, again at the Council on Aging and also available by Zoom. Parks Department Easter Egg Festival is this weekend, Saturday, the 9 to 10:30, and then the hunt will follow that at Cunningham Hall. I also wanted to acknowledge the work of Milton Police and making several arrests in terms of some mailbox thefts that they've been working on for some time. Folks, if you're sending checks by mail, if you can pay electronically, do it electronically. It is a very routine crime that we're seeing towns been victim to, vendors that we work with have been victim to. So I myself was an identity theft victim not too long ago, so it is an interesting time. So pay electronically if you can. And lastly, in terms of veterans agent, that position was posted with our veterans district of Randolph. We have candidates have applied. We're working on getting interviews lined up. I've been working with the American Legion to have a veteran participate on that screening committee as well. So hopefully to have a new vets agent in place soon. And then just lastly, if you see a truck or a minivan or some kind of passenger van driving around that's beta on it. Aqua Blue. Yeah, so you can't get Aqua Blue. Beta Group is an engineering company there in town. Observing the conditions of our roads to update our pavement management plan. And are hopefully very high skills for our roads.
But not a suspicious vehicle.
Yes, but you can't miss it. But so they took
When you see a stop and shop going down the aisle.
You see that?
No.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Zoll.
So I just want to congratulate the Milton High School Theater Department for their first ever state win, which is fantastic. They are having a parade, which is starting at the high school. This Saturday. It's going to mimic the route that was taken by the football team for their state championship. There's going to be a couple of trolleys. The high school boosters are putting it together. Milton Police has been super helpful in organizing it, and it's just a really great comment on the fabulous quality of the arts at our high school.
Congratulations.
Quick question, Mr. Zoll. What is the route start and finish?
It starts and finishes at the high school.
Okay, perfect.
And then it'll go down, it's like Brook,
Nice.
Right by here.
East, they'll go
Right
through
by
here,
here.
and then Brush Hill to
Oh, great, thanks.
Yeah.
We could have something on the deck.
Don't open that camera.
Oh.
She's recording.
Anyone, we're good?
So the only thing I want to bring up for the chair's report, and I keep bringing this up, is Mr. Milano's review.
Yes, I thought of that this morning.
I think that that is something that has to happen in the next week by all of us, and we need to vote on it at our my final meeting, which is the 22nd. So who's compiling those?
I am. So if people could get everything to me by Monday, I'll have it come out because I'm leaving the country on Wednesday. I'll get it done. And am I sending it? Tell them who am I sending it to?
So they should actually send them to Carla.
Carla.
Okay, Carla.
She doesn't see him.
And she-
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask, Mr. Zoll, if, not Mr. Zoll, Mr. Zulus, if he will also fill it out, since he was,
That's fine.
the board chair
Yeah.
during that time as well.
That's fine.
Okay.
And may I add something? Thank you. Nick, would you be able to resend out those forms to everybody again? So,
I have them, yeah.
well, just, it's always good to get them again, so everyone has them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good.
Anything else to share?
So I just want to, hold this up. This is a photo of, George Roper. As you come into the town of Milton from Dorchester across the bridge at 1 Adams Street, that bridge is named after George J. Roper, who was killed in action 80 years ago today, April 8th of 1945. And about 60 members of his family gathered on that bridge tonight to have a memorial in his honor. And it was cold and freezing, but it was very fitting. And the Roper name goes very deeply in this region. So you may remember the Roper wallpaper store that was on Granite Avenue at Hilltop Street, which was there for many years. So I told them that I wanted to mention this tonight, and congratulations, and may he rest in peace. So thank you for that. And then finally, I won't be here I'll be out of the country for the April 22nd meeting. I was going to Zoom in, but I'm actually in France, and it's going to be 12 o'clock in the morning, so I don't know that I'll do that. So this will be my final meeting with you, Ms. Bradley. And you know, for a whirlwind when you walk in this room. But since the day I met you, and I will say this to you as a credit to you, since the day I met you when I was chief and you were first on the warrant committee, you've always worked very hard for the people of this town and worked very hard for everyone. And it's not easy, as you know, as we all know. And when you were first running, when we first met, and I said to you, it takes courage to put your name on out on a ballot, and you did that. And you've done that for the last 3 years. And it will be different without you here. And I tell you that now. So on behalf of all the citizens of this town and everyone you have served, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We've come a long way.
But you have a lot to do before. When we come to work at the State House.
I already tried that, remember?
Yeah.
I put my name on
A lot of
that.
people come back.
You got lucky.
But I did. Oh,
So other than that, that's a future,
no, can we do the?
yes, public comment response. I was.
Now you're gonna not like me, but I have a response to the public comment. I wanna say that, what Ms. Felton brought up today about the loss of the COA grant money for the band. It pushed us at this point to over $1 million that this town has either spent or lost in grant money, specifically because of non-compliance with the MBTA communities. Those items are the election at $60,284, special counsel at $275,000, town council we are approximating is $29,000, the seawall at $142.5, the fiber INET $250,000, the ADA compliance at $55,000, an IT grant that Rob went out for at $110,000, and the COA van at $97,334, for a grand total of $1,019,183. That number is just going to keep ticking. I also want to remind folks that at our last meeting, Mr. Milano did inform us that we could go for a grant to pay for somebody to do oversight and auditing, which we can't even apply for because we are not in compliance with the MBTA Communities Act. Right now, the only thing it would take for us to be in compliance with the MBTA Communities Act is to file that piece of paper. That's it. We don't even need a plan. We just needed to file that piece of paper, and we didn't. And now we are out over $1 million. And I think that that's a real shame and it's a real detriment when we are looking at our residents to go out there and ask them for $9.5 million. And here we are just fiddling away over $1 million because we couldn't sign a piece of paper. So to me, this is a really big thing. I will be keeping a ticking total on this because I think it impacts our people. And I don't think people actually recognize how much it is impacting because we were told that it wouldn't impact and here we are. There's no central place where people can find this information. I'd like to, if Mr. Milano can put this somewhere on the town website, that would be amazing, where people can actually see what this is costing the town. We talk a lot about transparency, but in order to find these numbers, you have to ask the town clerk, you have to ask Mr. Milano, you have to find out what grants have been applied for, what ones are specifically denied because of MBTA. And so for me, I think if we really are going to be transparent and we're going to talk about how we can work together as a community, I think we need to have the facts out there. So that is my 2 cents, not my last 2 cents because I have one more meeting. But that is my 2 cents for this evening. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Anyone else? I do want to make one comment on the second comment. On the first comment that Ms. Rostetti, all of us came into this role and we deal with department heads of all calibers. Mr. Milano handles the departments on the town side. We work for the school committee as well. I don't think, at least for me in my career, I've ever, number one, gone to so many meetings to try and help balance the budget or try to find ways to do it. And the second one, to the members of this board, no one has ever come before a board in this history that I know of in the span of 18 months, a $6 million deficit. It's unheard of. And we have jumped, and especially you and Amy have jumped and twisted and manipulated and robbed Peter to pay Peter and the idea that she would say to us that we're trying to harm or do harm to them. We have done everything possible to try and keep this ship going forward. None of this, our fault, none of this, anything that we had any control on. We've just been handed it week after week and dealt with it week after week to try and make this go forward. And if anyone thinks that they want to add another $1 million to a $9.5 million override, good luck to you. Go try and do it because this is going to be part of. We're already climbing up Mount Everest on our hands and knees to begin with. You want to put another $1 million on it and to suggest that we would do it in a detrimental way is why we didn't. It's absolutely wrong. And I'm truly ashamed that she would come and speak to this board in such a manner tonight. She knows how hard I've talked to her first. She knows how hard we have worked at this, and it doesn't help the issue at all. That's all I'm saying about it. Anything else? Thank you. Okay, so 16 future meeting dates: the 22nd, April 30th, May 5th, May 6th, and May 7th. Future agenda items. Ms. Bradley, you got any?
Of course I do, Mr. Chair.
And
I would like to bring up again that the IT committee has new broadband committee. Thank you.
They're planning for the 22nd.
They're planning. You guys are the best. I have no agenda items then.
I have an agenda item.
Go ahead.
Actually. Mr. Zulus mentioned previously, that he wished that he could continue to play a role in town government. Obviously, we don't know how the elections are going to go, and then they happen, and then everything's changed. So, just occurs to me that if potentially it would make sense if Ms. Musto had hopes and dreams of things that she wanted to continue to do, if election day didn't go in her favor, that she could maybe put that forward at the next meeting. And then same for you, Ms. Bradley. We know that you're not on the ballot.
My
So
lighting bylaw is all I care about.
Okay. I think it's important for us to make sure that there's some continuity.
I will say this just about broadband, and I met with the undersecretary the other day, and it's very enlightening. And I told her this after for me. She was very blunt with me. She was like, "Cable's going away." It's like it's archaic. And one I know on the budget level, on the budget side, I know no cable sees it. I think the number of people who draw from it is like
it's
through the roof. It's like through the roof. So the state's idea of investing any money or advising people to invest money into anything that goes particularly to a home, it's like you go on a dead end. It's not going to exist anymore.
Yes, that, I'm not gonna argue, but I just, for me, it was about.
Oh, the infrastructure.
No, not about the infrastructure, it was about if continuity, if Ms. Musto.
Oh, I know what
and
you said,
Maurice
oh, I know,
Bradley
but
wanted
you,
to be-
I get that, I'm with that,
It's-
I get that. I get
Yeah.
it.
Oh, and
You just made me think about it though, when you said
my
that.
names, naming the next thing after a woman.
Well, I don't think you can do that tonight, it's not.
But the next thing that happens should be named after. a
Well,
woman.
maybe you should put yourself on.
As a matter of fact,
I can put myself on a committee.
we'll get to that.
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
All right, so we're going into, where are we going now?
Yeah, how are we gonna do
We're
that?
going to motion, we're going into executive session, let me get in.
I believe in executive session.
Let's just go to Abby first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. So, so.
Where do we have to-
between us,
we have to
okay.
adjourn.
So I'm gonna move to adjourn, I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna move to adjourn from open session, enter executive session for discussion regarding strategy with respect to litigation entitled Joe Henning et al. Versus Planning Board et al. Norfolk Superior Court Civil Action Number 2582 CV 00293. Based on my belief that the discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the select board, the select board will not return to open session. Do I have a second? on this?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, roll call, Steve, I'm sorry. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Myself, yes. And then, is this a second one here?
Yeah.
Then there's a second executive session. I'm gonna move also and enter executive session discussion regarding strategy with respect to litigation entitled Town of Milton ODR docket number WET 2025-004 DEP file 40-046-0630 based on relief. The discussion of this matter in open session will have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the select board. Select board will not return to open session. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second, Ms. Musto. All those in favor, Ms. Musto?
yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll and
Yes.
myself, yes. We adjourn, and thank you again to everyone for coming tonight, for your participation, and especially to our hosts, Kevin Davis and Joel Clifford, for allowing us to. This is something we have to do again. And thank you to Milton Cable Access for making this happen. Thank you, Elaine. Have a good night.